Well, good morning. Welcome to the 2025 Soybean Summit. My name is Andrew Larson. I serve as our Director of Government Relations and Strategy, and I'll be serving as your MC and guiding you through today and tomorrow's agenda, packed with many opportunities to learn and connect, discover new ways that we're serving farmers in our industry here in Illinois. This room is filled with soybean farmers who persevered through a challenging growing season, produced a record-breaking 688 million bushels of soybeans, alongside the experts, stakeholders, and staff who supported farmers every step of the way. Excellence is everywhere you look, and we're excited to gain insights from industry leaders that will help Illinois maintain its position as the nation's #1 soybean producing state. If we had a board member here named Dwayne Anderson, I'd ask him to raise his hand and say #1, but I haven't seen Dwayne yet this morning. But before we dive into the first keynote session, I'd like to remind everyone, please silence your cell phones to ensure that we're uninterrupted. I even checked mine before I came up here to make sure that we're ready. But now I have the privilege of introducing someone who needs no introduction to most of you. He's a dedicated farmer, a visionary leader, and someone who's devoted many years of service to advancing Illinois agriculture. Please join me in welcoming the current chairman of the Illinois Soybean Association, Mr. Ron Kindred.
Thank you, Andrew. On behalf of the board and staff, we're thrilled to have you join us for the 25 Soybean Summit. This event is an incredible opportunity to connect, learn, and discover the many ways your Checkoff is working to support soybean farmers of Illinois. 5 years ago, ISA revamped its strategic plan to put farmers at the center of ISA's programs and messaging. This commitment has shaped every initiative we've undertaken and aligned our work with the needs of our farmers. Since then, our staff has expanded fourfold, bringing together talented professionals dedicating to supporting Illinois soybean farmers through promotion, advocacy, research, and education. ISA's refined focus has resulted in remarkable progress since 2020. One of our most exciting achievements is the launch of the Soy Innovation Center, designed to position Illinois as a national leader in sustainable technology and innovation. The center helps entrepreneurs, inventors, and researchers navigate the challenges of commercializing and scaling soy and bio-based products. Already, the center has made significant strides, including the development of a soy-based lubricant that can be used on your farm. This represents just one example of the untapped potential of Illinois soy, and we're excited about the possibilities on the horizon. Last year also brought the purchase of the ISA farm. This nearly 98-acre plot will serve as a year-round demonstration site, providing farmers and industry professionals with actionable learning experiences. From testing cutting-edge practices to showcasing sustainable farming techniques, the ISA farm exemplifies our commitment to driving progress in soybean production. Of course, growth and innovation are only part of the picture. Advocacy remains a cornerstone of ISA's work. Through the Illinois soybean growers, we continue to advocate for pro-farmer, pro-agriculture policies at both the state and federal levels. If you're not already an ISG member, I strongly encourage you to join today. It's only $75. Membership amplifies your voice and strengthens our collective ability to shape policies that benefit Illinois farmers. As we look to the future, I'd like to highlight the incredible advantages we have as Illinois soybean farmers. Our Market Development Committee is focused on protecting our state's world-class transportation system, which gives us a competitive advantage in the global marketplace. With access to a vast network of roads, railways, and waterways, we can efficiently transport soybeans to domestic and international markets. This logistical advantage not only supports our competitiveness, but also enhances our ability to meet the growing global demand for soy. Our Soybean Production Committee is committed to supporting farmers through cutting-edge research and practical resources. This fiscal year, we've invested in 22 research projects designed to address key challenges and opportunities in soybean production. Additionally, fieldadvisor.org continues to be a trusted, unbiased agronomy resource offering valuable insights and recommendations tailored to Illinois farmers. While our on-farm trial network works directly with producers to test innovative practices and gather real-world data that can drive meaningful improvements in productivity. Finally, our government relations team is dedicated to keeping Illinois farmers informed about policies that may affect their operations while working tirelessly to position Illinois Soybean Association as a leader in farm policy. And through the Illinois soybean growers, the team ensures that the voices and concerns of Illinois soybean farmers are heard in Springfield and Washington, D.C. Before we dive into today's agenda, I'd like to encourage you to make the most of the opportunities available at the summit, from engaging panel discussions and keynote speakers to topical breakout sessions. There's something for everyone. And if you're a member, don't forget to join us for the annual ISG dinner and auction this evening. It's a wonderful chance to connect with fellow farmers and support the important work of ISG. To kick things off, I'm excited to introduce three of ISA's outstanding leaders. Andrew Larson, our Director of Government Relations and Strategy, Todd Main, our Director of Market Development, and Abigail Peterson, our Director of Agronomy. Together, they'll provide an overview of how ISA works for Illinois farmers through our three departments: Government Relations, Market Development, Soybean Production. Thank you for joining us today and for being part of the Illinois soybean community. This summit is about working together to shape the future of our industry, and I can't wait to see what we'll achieve. So at this time, I want you to really listen to these next three staff leads that we have on board that's going to come up here and tell you a little bit about what's going on in each of our departments. I think, I know you'll be impressed with the work that's being done, and I think I would put these three up against any other three in their departments in the state and probably in the whole United States. They are top-notch. Proud to have them aboard, proud to call them part of our staff and a part of our leading our what farmers want here in Illinois. So first off is Abigail Peterson. She is our Director of Agronomy, and she will, I don't know if she's going to entertain us, but I think she will. So, Abigail.
Thank you, Ron. Yes, my name is Abigail Peterson. I am the Director of Agronomy at the Illinois Soybean Association. I'm headed into my third year there, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about the production team, what we have going on within agronomy, things that farmers can get involved in, things that are ongoing and happening to keep up with, and then a lot of the fun and interesting research that we have going on that really captures your needs, your questions, and getting what researchers information out the door, onto your fields, something that's practical for you to use. So I want to be able to be standing up here today, or any of the useful information that we have ongoing, to be able to reach your fingertips without the team that I have on production. You have agronomists at ISA. You can call us with questions. You can call us with things that you want to learn more about, have more clarity around. Even if you've asked your neighbors, the local seedsmen, the co-ops, call us up. We definitely love to hear what farmers have going out in the fields, what your concerns are, because there's probably others as well. And so our job is to be boots on the ground for you, and to utilize that, please do. And if we don't have the answers, we definitely know the people who do. Part of the strength of ISA is the network, and bridging those gaps between who has those answers, whether it be local or across state lines. We'll find the answers for you. Within the team, we have, like I said, agronomists, researchers, outreach specialists, really providing the production strategic plan to be executed as best we can. we love our jobs because we love working with farmers. Farmers like Ron and those on the board and those within our backyards, within the counties that we work in. We're really excited to be able to work on the strategic plan that you can see listed behind me that was built by the farmers within the production team, and with the strength of the board is what we strategize every year as we build our projects. And so if you do not see something that we're doing that you're not interested in or doesn't have something to do with you, you need to communicate with us. The engagement that farmers have with our team is what makes us strong, and we cannot stress the amount of feedback that you give us really does generate what we're going to do next. And so if you want to have a voice, my team has a lot of good ideas. We would love just to do whatever we want all the time, but we want to do what you want. And so please engage with our team. There's many ways to do it, and get together with us to learn more about how we can prepare you for the best soybean crop every single year. One of my favorite strategic plans is demonstration. I'm a huge visual learner. You'll notice Field Advisor right now online, which if you're really bored by this talk, you can look up on your phone right now, is very visual. There's pictures along with everything. There's not a research project that we have that does not have a picture that is looking at the equipment, that is looking at the field work, that is showing something that you are able to see. And I'm, like I said, a visual learner. These are field trays, part of a demonstration outreach demo that we do at field days. These are from one of our fields in a neighbor's field that I use for comparisons. I know the crop rotations, I know the climate, the soil variables, and how those decisions that we make affect our soil resiliency, our water quality, and the crop's ability to reach its fullest potential. So like I said, being in Illinois on your soils in your backyard, we're bringing demonstrations to you, and the research and the work that we do should reflect that. Our main goal within conservation is to show resiliency, to show stewardship, to show progression that is building you better investments of your operations tools that you use. So that's what we're dedicated to on the agronomy team. We're focused on the research. We're focused on why the tools work and why the tools sometimes don't work. One of my favorite things is going out to fields where farmers have a problem, and if anyone in this room has had me out to their fields, I'm taking a lot of pictures. I'm asking a lot of questions. If there was something that we could have avoided or something that we learned from that specific year, every single experience that we take away from that is going to propel us forward. So this is one of the strategic plans that we wrote that I really appreciate. This is one of the blurbs I just took from our Farmer Concerns Survey, the Producer Concerns Survey that you'll see on a scrolling slide deck throughout this day with a QR code. We have the survey outside at one of the desks. You're going to hear me talk about it a lot. This is right now very important for farmers to just please engage with us for as many minutes as it does to get through this. You could take seconds. Please take some time to really think through the questions we are asking you, because it drives what the next year projects are, which will kick off for those researchers, for those crop consultants, for those organizations in the state wanting to work together March 1st. So please fill this survey out. We take all the feedback that we've ever generated from this survey and compile it. We also take all the feedback from any field days we have been at. Anyone who has questions during a field day, we make sure to write them down, and we generate all of this into a summary for researchers to take across and utilize as they're developing their research projects. And what I think is very cool from this survey is not only does it help generate what ISA funds, but also beyond that. So if researchers are asking questions within, whether that be weed control, wheat rotations with double crop, anything under the sun, from why you're having issues with your planter setup, that could help generate interest in other funding mechanisms or other institutions that we're not even involved in. So it's really important to have the soybean voice in the room when it comes to where these research dollars go. So please take time to take this survey. It's like I'm gonna feel like a teacher up here and I'm hounding you on it. I feel like, is there extra credit I could give you? But it is important and it's quick and easy. And like I said, we work for you. So any complaints you might have, we also listen to those too. But we really appreciate when farmers put in some interesting questions, and especially when we can draw some conclusions that there's trends across the state, whether it be the biologicals, wheat rotations and things like I mentioned with, the inputs that you put into those double crop beans, do they really matter? It's very interesting just even as reading through them and learning more. So if you're wondering, where are my projects right now? Hopefully in this room, you have heard of at least one research project that we're doing. We have multiple. It has been growing over the 3 years and doubling in most cases. And there is a pamphlet that is in the room behind you that you can read about every single project. There's a blurb, there's the researcher's name, their phone number, their email. There's every single way that you can contact who is researching these projects. And why they're researching these projects. So on the research team that we have in production, it's very important for us to be able to communicate the information timely and for it to be actionable. We don't want to be giving you information on how to treat red crown rot when if we launch ourselves into the future and these are things that we should have been doing years ago. We want to be in front of the problems, but also something you guys are busy. You're looking at the weather, you're looking at the markets. How can we make research more approachable? All the research is proposed into questions, so as you read them, you should know what this research is going to be answering. We hit you right off the bat with what is the question that this is tackling. If that question relates to you, take it, read it, follow it along, and find the final results. For example, one that has come up recently has been red crown rot. Now, if you have seen red crown rot yourselves, heard about it in the news, this is just a quick one that I grabbed. There's so many of the projects that I could have chose from, but I chose red crown rot because I do want to put it in front of you as there's good information that we have generated with the partners, researchers, and those who have been working on this problem, where it's going to be going, how you should be able to help yourselves identify, monitor, send in samples to make sure you have verified disease presence and what we can do as a state to monitor this. It's not only important for you on your fields to keep this under control or to know what is happening, but as a state to know where this is going. It's really important to join together to monitor this disease. So our next webinar on Field Advisor does host the researchers that are using ISA Checkoff money to learn more about this disease and how it affects Illinois and where we should go. So please keep up with red crown rot. Those pictures all of the above are from taken across the state from Moweaqua, Illinois to all the way to the western border. It's spreading, it's interesting. It looks like a lot of other diseases though, so we need to really be vigilant to make sure we're identifying and diagnosing what is in the field. Part of the agronomy team and building what we have going on is how do we structure research to get to you? How do we better understand research? Even if the questions aren't answered, let's do it in real time. Let's go out and make these applications. One that we've consistently gotten from our surveys since I started here as ISA has been sulfur. Sulfur's been brought up. Sulfur's not new. There's research out there already. Good research from Purdue, good research from other soil information across the state, but really looking into how to approach sulfur in your operations, we set up action trials. So there is a network platform on Field Advisor that you can sign up for. It gives you a direct call from my staff, and they ask you questions on would this be something of interest as far as the question we're trying to answer, the plot setup that we need to conduct, kind of following through the steps. And if it's a yes from there, then we go on to the protocol and setting up the trial and working through you with that throughout the growing season with scouting and updates and then all the way to final results. So really bringing that service to you, partnering with those who have done the research, bridging their knowledge into what we're doing. And so we're really excited to be able to expand this network. I say this now because the sulfur trials are filled up for this year. We also had an entomology trial with Dr. Nick Sider here at the university looking into insecticides, which I believe has been fulfilled up. This map actually isn't as updated as it could be. We have some more dots on there. As you can tell, my team really did try to get across the state. We have a little dot further down south and one on the west that we added. We really want it to be important to represent as many areas of the state that we can. But please still sign up, because this will keep you on a list to be notified of any projects that we have of people reaching out to us. Might interest you, or it might be something that you delete out of your inbox, but I think it's really important if you want to be involved in some of the cutting edge research or things that we're really just trying to build a great foundation for in the state, to get that effort. This is a great way to be involved. So at ISA, your reach stretches further. So it's not just the checkoff that you have going into these projects that is making a difference. Obviously, there's many organizations across the state that we work with to make sure we're not doing the same thing. We need to stretch our efforts either together or diversify and make sure you're getting the best information across the state and as many different networks and pools that you can. NCSRP, the North Central Research Program, is something that a lot of the colleges across the Midwest participate in. So red crown rot being an issue across Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky. Those researchers in those states are also engaged in well. SCN, soybean cyst nematode, that should be a familiar one for all of you. There's researchers that we build these teams that are working on these things together. And when those teams come out with a solution, we want to be able to give you everything that we have to be able to approach the next growing season the best you can. So NCSRP, the Soybean Research Information Network, I would say if you're Googling, and one of the top searches is the SHRIN network there, it is a good resource. So please use it. There's a lot of good pictures on there. Like, as an agronomist, when you're out in the field, I always love a good book and web resource that has the pictures to help identify videos of how to do things, how to take soil samples, how to take the best tissue samples, just some of those fundamentals that you want to find. It's a great resource, and something that we're doing behind the scenes. There's always something going on. So like I said, please participate with us. We work with other states as well, like the soybean quality with Minnesota that you'll see up there, where we take samples after harvest. Those go in for protein and oils, trying to set up the next speaker, as well as soybean quality coming from the field, my team, onto the next team on how you sell those beans better. It is something that is very important that we take samples for. Really way to get involved, taking a sample out the back and filling out the form and sending it for free. Gives you some interesting feedback to your hands as well, and something that would be of interest to you. Free soybean cyst sampling is available, so please utilize that program as well. And the field advisor information, it's updated every day. There's always something going on our blogs, on crop reports. When the growing seasoning is up and running, we have agronomists all across the state contributing to the crop reports, so you can see what's happening there. And the webinars, like I said, our last one was on biologicals, very well engagement on the biological side of things. Next one coming up is red crown rot. So if you ever miss one, they are recorded, as well as a lot of the outreach events that we conduct are recorded, available to watch over and over and over again. If you're a CCA, getting CEU credits and things like that. So really, hopefully helping that whole information pool that is out there, driving some of what soybean farmers need to be in front of, is hosted on this website. With that, one of the last programs I do want to mention, just because it's open now and we don't want to miss the opportunity, we are going to be signing up our next Soy Envoy class. You can read about the Soy Envoys online at Field Advisor. If you are a crop advisor in the room, if you are a farmer in the room, if you are someone who works in fields during the growing season, the Soy Envoy class is a great way to get involved. Like I said, it generates information for the crop reports that we have. It generates information for the blogs. It connects you with Illinois researchers with our information, and really engages on either if it's with the retailers, with the crop consultants, or the farmer, a good dialogue to what's happening. And so we have podcasts as well that go out, and I hope as the growing season goes on, as you have time in the tractor, time driving around, utilize that podcast to get quick updates on what we have going on. I cannot stress how much getting involved really means to us. We know it takes time. We know you're all busy. We want to hopefully you see what that profit comes out of engaging with us in that investment. We're here to work for you. We're very excited. I'm very excited to be able to get outside and when things warm up and start the year off and what we have going on. So please keep up with us. It's great to see you here today. Please stop me or Stephanie Porter here, who is on the agronomy team, if you have questions. And with that, I will be introducing Todd Main next, our Director of Market Development. Thank you.
Good morning. And can we just give a round of applause to Abigail? Because she is so good. That's right. So my name is Todd Main, and I'm the Director of Market Development. And what that means is that what I do is try to figure out what to do with all the soybeans that you folks grow. And what are we going to do with them? How are we going to get them to markets here domestically? How are we to get them to markets around the world? And that is a wonderful challenge to have and a unique opportunity. And what we like to do in my shop is think strategically about how to do this the most efficient way. And so I'm really lucky to be working with the folks that you see up on the screen here, who are all very enthusiastic, very experienced and knowledgeable, and what they bring to the table is fresh sets of eyes and ways to think about things that are going to work in a variety of different situations. What I'd like to talk to you about today is an initiative that was launched just about a year ago. Actually, we launched in March of last year, and that is the Soy Innovation Center. And this was the brainchild of the board of directors as a way to stimulate demand in what we've traditionally called the new uses category. And new uses is thinking about how do we use soy for things that maybe are beyond animal feed or beyond human food, which are the traditionals. And we know we use oil for biofuels. But what else can we use the soybean product for? And that's really becoming a more and more important part of the puzzle. And thinking about how do we take what can be a quick substitute for almost anything with a petroleum base and have a performance and price competitive position in the marketplace. But how do we push the envelope? How do we get to the next stage? You know, one of the advantages that Illinois has is we have an incredible foundation of research facilities in the state. And how do we tap into that? And so that's what the Innovation Center is set up to do. It's to support and fund the research in these different areas. And then once the research is done and the product is available, then perhaps the most difficult piece is how do we set that up to be a commercially viable situation so that we can scale. Because at the end of the day, the mission that we have is how do we move the pile? And so the two projects that I'd like to talk about today, the first one of those is the Springboard Challenge. And this is an initiative that we are going to launch in April of this year to bring together the best researchers at the state universities in Illinois with the Agricultural Research Service labs in Peoria, and with some other folks in the private sector to really launch projects that will take students from the universities, match them with researchers at those same universities, and develop real-world solutions to problems that we have. And so what we've done is we've organized this into 5 thematic categories, and we're going to let them help determine some of this. But the first one of those is building on some work that we've done over the past year, and which Ron mentioned earlier, in the area of bio-based lubricants. So we've developed a soy-based lubricant for heavy equipment that we can use on the farm and in other areas that now we have a patent pending, and now we're in discussions with a licensing agreement with some of the folks that have the ability to take that up. The next phase of that work, what we'd like to do is then develop a lubricant that can be used on food-grade manufacturing equipment. So it can't have a petroleum base, it can't have any harmful chemicals. It'll be something that is useful in food manufacturing, which there's a ton of in Chicago and other places. The second category is bioplastics or soy-based plastics. And you may have heard about some work that's being done in soy-based plastic work, and generally that work has involved the use of oil as a substitute for petroleum. What we're going to do is take a slightly different tact on that because there's so many people working in that space right now. We're going to take the proteins out of the meal and use that as the feedstock for soy-based plastic. So it could be a potential meal solution moving forward. The third area, which is a growing problem that we've just recognized, relatively recently, is the area of PFAS. And these are the persistent chemicals that don't break down in the environment, but are in very wide use across the industrial landscape. But because they are petroleum-based, we can use soy as a substitute and to come up with a soy-based substitute for those. And so this has gotten a lot of recognition recently in the area of foam that's being used by firefighters. The firefighting foams that they use to put out fires. It is currently it's a very harmful process for them. And so this will be a much safer solution for our firefighters to use in their equipment. The next one is the area of biotextiles. And so you think about synthetic clothing, so you think about things that are rayon or nylon or other kinds of synthetic clothing, but using a soy-based feedstock for those. And there are some challenges there because of the structure of the cellulose and some of the other things there that we've got to overcome. But we think that's a very promising opportunity as well. And then the last category for the research challenge is going to be in the area of polymers, which are the building blocks of a lot of industrial processes. So the idea is we're going to officially launch this in April to get students lined up, and then our hope is to begin research on all of these areas starting in the fall at the in conjunction with the various universities around the state. So very exciting for us. The second thing that I'd like to talk about today is some of the discrete or individual research projects that the Innovation Center is developing this year as well. So the food grade manufacturing, so in addition to those categories, we're actually doing an applied research with our partners at Arable Labs, which is based out of the Columbus, Ohio area. They're going to do some work, continuing to build on work they've done on the food grade manufacturing lubricants. We are doing some work with the area of soy-based bioplastics with the University of Northern Illinois. And they are going to be using that, and the goal is to create a formaldehyde-free soy-based plastic. That's very exciting, has lots of applications as well. We're going to do another project with fermentation around using soy hulls. And just a quick side note, right now, Wrigley chewing gum uses a chemical or a product called xylitol to make its ingredient in chewing gum. Well, it turns out that Wrigley buys their xylitol from China. China ferments corn cobs to extract the xylitol from. And what we've done are seeking to do and will do this year is figure out how to use soy hulls and ferment those and to produce the xylitol so that Wrigley chewing gum can really be made in Illinois. And then the last one is a rubber that we're building on some work that was done at the USDA labs in Peoria. And this is patented work that they license out, and so we're talking to them about developing a food grade alternative for that. So thank you for your time. I want to introduce my colleague Andrew Larson, who runs our government relations department, to tell you a lot about some of the interesting things that are happening in the legislative front. Thank you.
Well, thank you, thank you, Todd and Abigail. Move the microphone up there a little bit. Before we dive into the policy update and what's going on in Springfield and Washington, D.C., I want to take an opportunity to provide some editorial content and say, well, I provide a lot of editorial content, depending on who you talk to, but certainly we know that this organization has changed over the last few years. I've had the privilege of being here for a little over 7 years in the organization, and from the day I started to today, we are in a much more capable place to work for the folks that our job is work for every single day, and that's all of you, the soybean farmers in the state of Illinois. Specifically, you saw the expertise and depth that we have in agronomy. You're taking the expertise we have in market development and places that our organization only dreamed about going a number of years ago. My job in government relations is pretty simple. It's to help support the roles that our production folks are seeing, and if there's an interface with government that needs to happen with policy to enhance, whether it's conservation, whether it's to enhance any sort of protect crop protection tools, or as increasingly as folks want to call out, make sure that we're protecting pesticide use and be able to rely on those tools as farmers in agriculture. Our job is also to work with our colleagues in market development to make sure that when there's an interaction with government, that your markets stay open, or you can have new markets and create those supports, whether it's tax incentives, whether it's trade deals, to make sure that we're able to continue to market your soybeans effectively, not just Illinois, but also around the world. So how do we do that? Maybe your question. Certainly, I know that we have a major team in the Illinois Soybean Association that's grown over the last few years. Our government relations team now currently consists of 8 members. When I started at ISA, we had, depending on how you do the math, about 1 full-time person working in that space. Of course, so that's a major area of growth. And as I had the opportunity to sit on a panel with some of my colleagues in other commodity organizations a few weeks ago, one of the revelations I had was talking to prospective students here at U of I who are working in ag policy in the future, is there's never been a time, in my opinion, of course I work in government relations, so of course it's my opinion, but I think it's really the truth and reality that we've needed government relations efforts to help support agriculture more than any time in our history. Whether you're looking at issues in the climate smart economy. Of course, we know the Trump administration isn't as high on the climate smart economy as the Biden administration folks are, but we know those trends are real. We know those trends are out there, and there's folks trying to create those marketplaces and drive a global trend towards more sustainable outcomes, and that's something that has an intersection with policy. And that space alone has grown dramatically in where we're engaging as a team. One of the reasons you see up there on the screen is we have 2 full-time staff members working in environmental policy specifically. They are both here today. Dr. Corey Lacey is a PhD of soil sciences. I need him to help translate some of the soil science issues and make sure that I can understand and bring back to legislators exactly what this means and how exactly we can tell that story to be more effective in outcomes. Ashley Haddon also joined our team last year to also engage in that space and to work in supporting environmental policy. They are here this morning. They're meeting with a small group of farmers to talk about the monarch butterfly issue, which I know in a breakout you'll hear more about here later in the course of this conference. Of course, we know we have some traditional issues like farm policy, whether you're talking about the Farm Bill, whether you're talking about tax issues that hit the farm, whether you're talking about animal agriculture, and Colin Cisco on our team engages on those issues. And then, of course, David Kubik on our team engages on biofuels. You're going to hear me talk a lot about biofuels in just a few minutes because it's a topic that has been ever present for the last few years for this organization, this industry, and one that is definitely currently impacting and will continue to impact profitability of soybean farmers in Illinois. More broadly, we also have 2 team members who work to support our operations day in and day out and are indispensable to be able to operate our legislative programs in Washington and Springfield, as well as our operations attorney office, and sometimes keep me on track, as Gracie Sheets and Matt Johnston. Then lastly, I know Ron plugged it a little bit earlier, but if you don't have plans for tonight and you want to stick around and stay at the Illinois Soybean Growers Annual Meeting and Membership Dinner, this is the 2nd year in a row we've had this dinner here in conjunction with the Soybean Summit. And it's really a testament to the growth and the strength of the membership organization, the policy organization. Of course, your checkoff dollars can go to help research, education, promotion, but they can't go to lobbying. And they can't go to engaging in a political context with a lot of the folks we need to engage with. So the membership dollars go a long way to helping us make sure we support that. And tonight is an opportunity for you to engage as a member of the organization, the Illinois Soybean Growers, as well as to support our political action committees, which in our space increasingly have become more important to gaining access and having conversations with key legislators. And Ashley Berry on our team, who I know is setting up some auctions, lovely auctions out in the hall for you folks, raffles and opportunities to raise money that goes directly to representing your interests in Springfield and Washington for our Illinois Soybean Growers political action committees. So you might be asking, what are our priorities? What do we work on? Well, we'll start on the state side. And I know that there's been a lot of talk and interest on the estate tax issues here in the last couple of years. We know that family farms need some planning tools, some better certainty about how you can pass a farm on between generations, and making sure that we have a system that makes sense and operates at a level that helps make sure that those estates don't have to break up that farm to be able to pay the taxes to keep it going in generation to generation. We know that when folks start talking about $4, $5, $6 million estates, everybody goes, I don't have that much money sitting around. Well, you might have that value in farmland. I know there's one farmer in the room who we recently had this conversation with, and he started adding up, and he goes, oh, shoot, that's a lot of money. That's going to be a problem if someday when I pass along, if I don't have this thought out and have the right policies in place to make sure that I can support my farm and pass that on. We have 60% of the acres in this state are farmed by somebody who doesn't own them. That's the highest rate of non-operating landlords in the country, and it's an issue that leads directly to profitability when you talk about cash rent. Farm managers and folks having land in the hands of the farmer helps you to control your profitability in a better way. So breaking up more farms is not the answer to being able to continue to support agriculture in Illinois. That's something we've heard loud and clear from our board of directors, and that's why it's a priority to make sure that we address the estate tax issue here in Illinois, which currently we have a state threshold of exclusion at $4 million. Now, the federal is an exemption, and that number is closer to 12. We know that the federal government is dealing with extending those tax credits that were passed in 2017 under the previous Trump administration. And you will see major interest and efforts to renew those tax cuts in D.C. Later this year. But that doesn't help you with state taxes, of course. The state of Illinois also has an estate tax in place, and that exclusion level means that technically, if you have an estate of $3,999,000 and change, you are exempted from paying taxes on that first. You are excluded, from paying taxes on that amount of money. But as soon as you have an estate of $4,001 or $4,001, you have to start paying on the full amount, going all the way to zero. And yes, our state estate tax code has a prorated rate going all the way down to the beginning of your state. So the system is somewhat unreliable. There's not great data out there with the Illinois Attorney General's office who works on this issue. They deal with most probate and end of life and estate planning challenges. So they are the key agency in Springfield that deals on this. They acknowledge there's a problem. They acknowledge there's work that needs to be done to make sure that we can have some more certainty in how the system operates. So one of our major goals is to work with the Attorney General's office and work with other stakeholders to make sure that there is some certainty and some cleanup done to make sure this estate taxes in Illinois can get fixed. We certainly don't want to have folks continue to have to go hire an even larger army of attorneys just to be able to manage how your estate transfers from generation to generation. So that's a major goal and something we spend a lot of time with our board of directors working on in Springfield. Of course, we talked about conservation, and I'm gonna share a fact with folks that it's hard to understand sometimes based on where we're at in Illinois. But Illinois is a blue state. We are governed by a super majority of folks who not only are from an opposite party than a lot of our members, but also are from an opposite reality. They live in an urban environment. They don't have agriculture in their backyard. Of our members of our of the 177 members of the General Assembly, over 2/3 of them can see the Sears Tower on a clear day from their backyard. That's pretty crazy. And our biggest job, whether it's not lobbying on individual legislation or going out there and coming up with policy proposals and that, it's simply telling your story to these legislators and having them understand where you're coming from. By and large, they love learning that. They love seeing that, hey, this is something I don't understand. I don't have agriculture in my backyard. So being able to go out and bring positive programs like we work on through the fall cover spring savings, bringing cover crop, bringing a proactive solution about how the state of Illinois continue to invest in conservation resources that farmers can use are the types of things that help us bridge that gap and work much more effectively with Chicago legislators and have that opportunity to engage with them and provide better outcomes for agriculture. Because it's easy for a legislator to introduce a legislation that bans the use of 2,4-D or bans the use of Roundup, but it definitely is something that it's much harder for them to do when they've actually had a direct conversation with the farmer and understand where they're coming from and why they do what they do on a daily basis. So the last issue I'm going to bring up on the state side is biofuels, and I'm going to talk more about the biofuels issue on the federal side as well. Of course, we know that for soybeans, that means the use of biodiesel and increasingly renewable diesel. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a market boom in demand for soybean-based biofuels, other biofuels based from non-petroleum sources. A lot of this has been fueled by the low carbon fuel standard in the state of California. A lot of folks take that to mean that California's low carbon fuel standard is a positive for agriculture and it grows markets and demand for soybean oil and other ag feedstocks. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of how a low carbon fuel standard operates. In the short term, it does increase demand. But in the long term, the policy agenda and goal and outcome of a low carbon fuel standard, particularly in California, is to get to a zero emission outcome at some point in the future. And that zero emission outcomes means no use of liquid fuels of any type. It means the use of clean, renewable energy that is no fossil fuel generation included in this production line. Now, their timeline to get there, I think we can all argue with how we feel about whether that's achievable or makes sense or all those things. But the reality is those are the policy outcomes and goals that they have. So in California, a few years ago, we saw the boom of renewable diesel. And everyone in the soybean industry was really excited to see this boom in renewable diesel. We have traditional biodiesel, which is made by, I'm going to get the technical terms here wrong a little bit, but it's basically you can take some catalysts, blend it together, and make traditional biodiesel in your backyard, in your basement if you wanted, in a big tub. I'm not exaggerating, it can be done. Renewable diesel is different. Renewable diesel, you have to have a traditional oil refinery to make. You have to put it through the same production process that you do with traditional crude oil and crack the hydrocarbons in there. Not a lot of people are doing that in their basement. Some may have tried, but that's a different story. With that outcome, we know that biodiesel and renewable diesel have very different pathways into the market. We don't produce any renewable diesel here in Illinois today because we don't have the facilities to do that. Yes, we have oil refineries, but those oil refineries are needed to produce petroleum. And I think a lot of us can attest when we see spikes in gas prices, particularly in the northern half of the state, it's usually because one of the oil refineries in the Joliet, Chicago area goes offline for a short period of time, whether it's a routine maintenance, whether it's unscheduled maintenance, something like that. We see a corresponding bump in prices because the market has been disrupted. Those are major economic tools and drivers for gas prices here in the upper Midwest. So the likelihood of us building or transitioning any of our current oil refineries to a renewable diesel is very low. But what you are seeing is you're seeing older, smaller refiners in places like California, Texas, and other states get converted to produce this renewable diesel product. But going back to California's LCFS, one of the biggest challenges with that is while it's law, it's not regulated by an elected body of officials. It's regulated by an unelected group of bureaucrats. We know we had a group of our board members had the opportunity to go sit down with those folks. They're called the California Air Resources Board. and have a divested conversation about how the program works. How do they make decisions? How do they incentivize certain fuels? Why do they put carbon intensity scores on one feedstock versus another, both going into the production process? And what we learned is that it's a political process. Going back to remember I talked about their goal is to get to zero carbon use by a certain date. They will change the levers, the bureaucrats, unelected bureaucrats will change the levers in that system to be able to use certain products at different times. And unfortunately, they don't believe in the use of row crop-based feedstocks for any of their fuels. They have science or pseudoscience or political agendas that do not support the use of row crop agriculture because they believe it has high carbon emissions. And the simple fact is California's LCFS is not a long-term market we can rely on for the use of expansion of our market for the use of biofuels. That's a controversial statement. A lot of folks would disagree with that a few years ago, but the writing is getting very clear on the wall. The most recent battle on that front has been the use of used cooking oil. Used cooking oil has always been eligible for these LCFS programs, but in the last few years, additional incentives have increased to incentivize the use of it. If you've gone out to your local Mexican restaurant or Burger King or whatever it is, you'll have seen a box out back. Now, that wasn't there a few years ago. Various companies go out and collect that used cooking oil, and we are collecting the vast majority of used cooking oil on the market in the country. So we've sucked that market dry. We pulled a lot of beef tallow, animal tallow out of the market as well. And that product, which has of course other uses, has been displaced in the marketplace as well. Well, all of a sudden, dramatic amounts of used cooking oil started showing up on the imported market coming from predominantly China, but also other sources in Asia. And the question is this used cooking oil or is it a fraudulent feedstock? Well, the answer is probably a little mixed of both. But we know one thing is a lot of it is actually palm oil that has been used in the cooking process at some point, whether it was intensively used or in its normal life cycle, or whether it was put into the used cooking oil supply chain through different means. We'll let other folks be the judge of that. But the simple fact is that's flooded the market into California, which has pushed out soybean oil and other products out of the California LCFS. Didn't mean to do a complete dissertation on the California LCFS, but it's important because there are folks who want to bring California-style low-carbon fuel policy here to Illinois. We have major concerns about that. While there are ways to do the program better, while there are ways to have better outcomes for farmers and treat farmers and agriculture-based feedstocks better in those programs, the simple reality is I think LCFS programs are a negative and potentially will lead to destruction of demand for our product here in the Midwest. We've done and that's one success story that this organization and farmers in Illinois have done a lot of work over the last 20 years to build, is an in-state demand for biodiesel. Remember that traditional biodiesel I said you can make in your basement? Well, we use over 300 million gallons and are on the pathway to use 400 million gallons of B100 every year. That's on the low end, the soybean oil from over 100 million bushels of our soybeans that we grow every year. It's a major market. It's something demand relies on in Illinois that makes a major amount of impact on the basis and the prices the farmers in Illinois are getting for their soybeans. We don't want to say we don't want to play in these other markets, whether it's SAF, which is a whole nother topic which I won't dive into, or renewable diesel. These are all major opportunities. And I know there's another breakout session happening later. We'll talk more about some of this stuff if you really find it interesting, and you can get on the rabbit hole pretty quickly. But the basic premise of what we're saying is we want more markets, but we don't want to lose the markets we already have and rely on. So one of the policy outcomes of our organization is absolutely fighting as aggressively as we can to make sure that we don't lose that market for biodiesel here in Illinois. And it's come to a head as of late because there's legislation called Senate Bill 41 in Springfield, which is our state's low carbon fuel standard. As written, we are opposed to that legislation. We would like to see diesel fuel exempted, which would take away some of the concerns we have about attacking markets for biodiesel. But we know there's a lot of other folks in the room who are going to prevent positive outcomes from happening to that legislation. So you may hear us talk a lot more about that in the few months to come about Senate Bill 41 and some of the impacts. We appreciate the work being done by Senator Kaler on the legislation to try and represent all parties. But fundamentally, we believe these low carbon fuel standard policies are detrimental to market demand for traditional biodiesel, which is something we absolutely very much rely on here in Illinois. So I mentioned the federal side of all this. How does that work? You probably heard webinars, you've seen stories about the role of the 45Z clean fuel production tax credit has on agriculture. And the simple fact is that program is in disarray. We know that in 2022, actually, I remember it was actually sitting in this room when it passed, random fact, but the Inflation Reduction Act passed and included a transition away from the federal blender's tax credit to something called the Clean Fuel Production Tax Credit, more commonly known as 45Z. What that does is it takes California-style carbon intensity scoring and places it on every feedstock for fuel that's used in the country. It's no longer just California, but it's putting a carbon intensity score on every feedstock. Soybeans get dinged pretty hard because of indirect land use change and some of the same penalties that are science that we don't agree with, that are impacted in the California LCFS, is taking that same policy idea and bringing it to our federal fuels policy. Are there advantages to other fuels in 45Z? Yes, there likely are. But for soybean oil into biodiesel, it is a losing game. We lose 70 cents out of the dollar we used to get from the blender's tax credit moving to the 45Z clean fuel production tax credit. So one of the things we met with our board of directors last week and had a long committee meeting, talked a lot about these topics, was bringing back that federal blender's tax credit. It's a policy that worked for over 20 years for the country. It worked for Illinois. It drove demand dramatically for biodiesel here in Illinois and supported our marketplace for that 300 to 400 million gallons of biodiesel that we have. So one of the things we're working on is bringing that back. We don't want to say to folks that you can't have 45Z for other fuel sources or have that option to provide carbon solutions through ag programs and sell your product into that marketplace. We obviously support options for farmers, and we want to provide those pathways to be open, but we don't want to lose a market. Going back to the same thing we said about Illinois, we don't want to lose a marketplace that we rely on for soybean oil demand here in Illinois. Weighty topic, and I know you guys are probably saying, well, I've not heard a lot about this. Well, one of our organization's goals is to help put more information out about this. We know that the Biden administration left the Trump administration at present, if you view it that way, and draft rules on the 45Z and how it would operate is developed by the U.S. Department of Treasury. And those rules were incomplete and unclear. So that will lead to some confusion. And unfortunately, confusion and uncertainty is bad for the biofuels market. We know there's biodiesel plants, even in Illinois, who are beginning to shutter and turn off their production spigots because of the uncertainty of the tax credit situation. So their situation is dire and urgent. So on that rosy topic, you may be asking myself, what else are you working on the federal level? Well, of course, I mentioned the federal tax package, and that's one area where I think everybody's very upbeat and positive. We know that the Trump folks passed and the Republican majorities in Congress passed the last tax package in 2017, which expires this year, and it is probably agenda item number one for them to get that renewed and improved. So I think that there's a lot of very positive silver linings there. Things like 199A, which has effects on your co-ops. There's other tax incentives and programs I think will be effective through that tax package. So that's one positive news I think will be coming out of Washington here soon. And hopefully, I think the Republicans would like to get that done sometime before the midpoint of the year. So sometimes before they break for their August recess is what we've been told. Of course, the other elephant in the room is Farm Bill. We are in year 3 of extension of the last Farm Bill. You may ask yourself, how long is a Farm Bill? It's a five-year program, and we're over halfway through where we should have had a new Farm Bill being passed out of 2023. So we are certainly not alone in agriculture groups that are sitting there saying, hey, we need some certainty in the Farm Bill. And I know that our final speaker of the conference here tomorrow afternoon is an absolute expert on that topic and can give you a lot more of the inside baseball of how that works and what's happening, how a Farm Bill works, and kind of what he sees as what's next. Jonathan Koppas, who's right here at the University of Illinois, former lead counsel for the the Senate Agriculture Committee, and literally one of the folks who wrote the book on the Farm Bill. He has 2 books out, actually. So somebody who's a real expert on how that works and the politics behind it. Will give you some of the details of what happens to the Farm Bill. But I know from our perspective as an organization, and I know our national organizations, the American Soybean Association, I know the same is true for the National Corn Growers and American Farm Bureau. Everybody is pushing to get something done. There is some concern that yet again the Farm Bill will be passed along to an extension phase yet again. I don't think a lot of folks want to vocalize that, but there's certainly a litany of other issues in D.C. That are taking precedent over passing a farm bill, a new farm bill, that is, this year. So we'll remain committed to working on the issue, but we aren't incredibly optimistic about that happening at the moment. So as I said earlier, there's a lot of need for government relations and policy folks at the moment because there's a lot of things impacting agriculture and your profitability. Our team at ISA is committed to helping work on that, and I know that over the last few years, we've had tremendous growth and helped redefine this organization in a place to be able to represent you better on a daily basis. To wrap up this session and to give you some parting comments before you guys head to lunch and we start the afternoon speakers, I'm going to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. John Lump, and he's going to provide some comments to close us out here this morning.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you. I know we talked about this, and they've highlighted a lot of their team. It has been a pleasure these past 5 years building this team, and we're doing some great things, and we were talking earlier last week, we had our board meeting, and the couple of board members said, what do you think's going to happen the next 4 or 5 years? And I said, we're going to keep doing great things, but they're going to become more challenging than what we've seen in the past 5 years. And I say that with all due intention because they are going to become more challenging, not only within the state, but also within the nation and globally. I'm John Lump. I'm the CEO of the Illinois Soybean Association. And I want to thank each of you for joining us for the 2025 Summit and for the continuing excellence which you perform your work. Illinois soybean farmers have become a global example of quality, resilience, and innovation. And your Illinois Soybean Association is proud to represent your industry impact. Our team does show up every day to work for the best interests of our farmers, to create new opportunities and markets for soy from Illinois, and maximize value for the checkoff and the member investments. I'm often asked about our plans for the future, and I always say the same thing. ISA strives to be the trusted partner of the Illinois soybean farmers to ensure profitability now and for future generations. And the one thing that I also say a lot is we are the only Illinois-based farm organization representing your interests. And we are very proud of that fact. We do wake up and go to bed thinking about what can we do for the Illinois soybean farmer and farmers in general. Because guess what? You guys and gals all grow both, and some wheat sprinkled in there. So we will continue investing in production research to advance on-farm profitability and sustainability. Bless you. We know our growers' ability to operate freely and effectively depends on robust data that addresses the challenges and opportunities ahead. ISA will continue to provide agronomic outreach, support, and education to farmers across the state through our on-farm field days, our Soy Envoy program, and online farm management tools. Bless you. We will continue working with in-state researchers to ensure our growers have access to cutting-edge, relevant information to make better informed farm management decisions. Through our Soy Innovation Center, we'll continue collaborating with industry experts to discover new uses and innovations for Illinois soy. We will continue to grow markets far and wide, from livestock and biodiesel producers here at home to buyers and end users in Europe and Southeast Asia. Transportation and infrastructure will remain a focus as we understand that efficient and reliable transportation is essential for maintaining the competitiveness of Illinois soybeans in the global market. And we will continue to champion legislative work that safeguards and advances our industry. This includes advocating for higher blends of biodiesel, ensuring that our state remains at the forefront of renewable energy initiatives. Our outlook is built on determination, grounded in reality, and bolstered by a forward-thinking approach. We know the challenges ahead are real, but so are the opportunities. I would like to close by extending my gratitude to the ISA Board of Directors, whose leadership and vision have guided us through the decades of change and growth. At this time, would the current and former ISA Board of Directors, including any of the national representatives, please stand and be recognized. Come on, guys. Come on. Ron, more. Very good. Thank you. ISA staff for performing their work daily in expertise and passion, and most especially, thank you. Thank you to the 43,000 Illinois soybean farmers who never hesitate to step forward when hands and voices are needed. You are the very center of our enduring success. As we conclude the morning session of the 2025 Soybean Summit, we invite you to enjoy lunch and continue connecting with your peers. But before I let everybody go, Dwayne Anderson, one of our board members, would like to come up and give an invocation before lunch.
Thank you, John. If we could all bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today and learn. We thank you for the good health for all of us in the new year and for prosperity with our farming operations and so forth. And we bless, and please bless the food upon which we are about to partake. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dwayne. I just asked him to do that 10 minutes ago, so very good. Oh, 5 minutes, sorry. We're excited to share the internet personality during lunch of Rob the Shark Farmer Sharkey and his wife, Emily Sharkey. They'll be joining us for lunch for the second half of lunch as a keynote presentation. We look forward to reconvening this afternoon to continue exploring the opportunities that lie ahead for Illinois soy. So please enjoy your meal. Lunch is ready out in the lobby, and please come back in here and enjoy the conversation. Thank you.